Create thousands of creative prompts and AI images with just one click. Hello my friends, how are you doing? Today I want to show you a pretty cool plugin that was suggested to me by my awesome community. Now here's some examples of that, and this plugin is good for beginners as well as people who are already experienced with AI, because it will show you a new variety of what you can do with the models that you have on your drive. Also, after this video I'm doing my first stage event today in my Discord server. You want to check out the link below. We're going to talk about what is new in AI. You can also show off your projects. Now let's look at how this is installed and how it is used. So first of all, you want to go to your extensions tab in Automatic 1111. You want to click on the load from button, and then down here in search you want to type one button prompt. And when you have the plugin, you click on the install button on the right side and wait for this to finish. There is also a second plugin that can be used together with this plugin. It's called the Aesthetic Image Scorer. So down here again in the search, type Image Scorer, look for the plugin, and again click on the install button. After this is done, as always, you want to go to installed, click on check for updates, and click on apply and restart to have the newest versions. Also, as always, I would suggest that you close the command window after all of this is done and make a completely fresh start of Automatic 1111. After the plugin is installed, you won't see any new tabs or new buttons because this is running as a script. So in the text to image tab, you want to scroll down to script, and from the list you want to select the one button prompt. This is opening up a new section with a lot of different choices. So I want to explain to you what they do to give you a simpler start. It is not as complicated as it looks. First, we have the main tab. On the first part, you have a slider that will give you a choice on how abstract you want to have these automatics prompts to be created, how complex and creative they should be. If you have a lower value, they stick more to what you enter. If you have a higher value, they go more wild with that. Then below that, you have several boxes to choose from. So you have here, for example, a subject type, for example, a humanoid. If you want to create a portrait, you have animal, landscape, concept, and so on. Right next to it, you have the artistic style. This is a pretty long list. Take some time to look through that to see all the different things this can help you create. And there's a lot of variety in there. And also it makes a lot of sense to experiment with this, even in models where you wouldn't necessarily expect that they are good for that kind of style. You might be positively surprised what they can create. So for example, in this case, let's go here with 3D. And for the subject type, let's go here for humanoid. Then below that, you have type of image. Now here you have another list. This is defining what is happening in the prompt, but also, again, different kinds of style of art or image subject. So here, for example, you have photograph, Octane render, digital art, concept art, but then also things like only other types, only template mode, art blaster mode, and so on. I would highly suggest to you to experiment with that if you don't want to get for one of these clearer styles up here right away, because again, this can give you a lot of very interesting results. So in this case, let's for example go here for digital art. Now below that, you can write a subject in here, which means the core part of the prompt you want to use or what the image should be about. And right next to that, you have here a smart subject. I couldn't really figure out what this is doing. It might help, it might not help. I didn't really see much of a difference here. But for example, if you want to create a female wizard, you want to write this in here in override subject. If you write nothing here at all, this will completely randomly generate prompts for you and create all kinds of things. That can also be very interesting, by the way, because one thing this plugin is good for is experimentation and exploration of what your model can do, but also what creatively can be created with AI overall. There's a lot of stuff out there that you probably have never thought about, but also ways to use a prompt to get other results that maybe you have never even thought to experiment with. Below that, you have some other fields like override the type of image. And for the prompt field here, for the positive prompt, you can write a prefix. This is going to stand in the front of your prompt, and a suffix. This is going to go at the end of your prompt if you want to add some specific terms here like like masterpiece, highly detailed, raw. Then below that you have a negative prompt that you can enter here, and in this of course you can also use the negative embeddings that you have installed on your system. Now I find it very interesting that if you leave this empty, this plugin isn't really generating any kind of negative prompt for you, so that is curious. And one other thing to point out here is when you have a very extensive negative prompt as you usually use with your model, this might limit the creative output of this plugin. So you might want to try to use this without a negative prompt and then slowly add things to that to see how that impacts the results you're getting. A very interesting thing is also found below that. It's called filter out following properties. So here you can enter all of the kind of words separated by a comma that you don't want to have. For example, face painting, Halloween, dragons, all these kind of things that you don't want to have in the images you want to create. Below that you also have a longer description that explains everything again to you. That is very good that they included that, because a lot of plugins just expect you to know what is going on. So here you have some more information on how to use the settings above. The next two tabs we find here are for more advanced users, I would say, so leave them out at the beginning. One is a workflow assistant that basically turns off the randomization of the prompt, and you can work here with more consistent prompts. This is good for when you found something you really like and you want to experiment more with it, go deeper into that. This can be a very useful tool here. And also you have a button here to generate some prompts for you, and then with these buttons you can send them up into this field up here. So this is still only using one prompt, and then you can experiment with that one specific prompt. We also have here an advanced tab. Now this can create multiple prompts at the same time and combine them together. For example, in this case, it has the prompt separator AND, so that it will create multiple random prompts and then combine them for you into one prompt and then render with this. Again, I would wait for that until you have a little bit more experience on how to use this. Now let's come here to the main part on where things are rendered. And this is going to happen in this tab here, because here you have all of your render settings. Now for getting started with this prompt, I would turn a lot of the things that are turned on here automatically off, because they take a lot of render time. Because if you leave the settings as they are, what is happening here is that the randomly generated prompts are rendered in normal resolution, then they are high-res fix upscaled 2 times, and then they are automatically upscaled another 2 times. And that takes a lot of GPU power. It also takes a lot of time. And I wouldn't suggest it, because this is very much about experimentation, exploration. So unless you drill down the prompt to something very specific, that most of the results are not something you want to keep. I would say that about 10% or less of the output is actually something you want to keep. So my suggestion for you here would be to turn off high-res fix and turn off the upscale image with image to image option. Click here. And this means it is only generating the low resolution image for you, but this is rendering fast through the images. You can see all of the options, and then afterwards, if you want to, you can still upscale them with image to image in automatic 1111. But by doing this, by turning everything off here, you're just saving a lot of time. Now here are some other things that are important to understand. First of all, this is using automatic 1111 through the API. So here you have the local domain this is running on. So you want to check that this and this up here is the same value. Next, you also need to set this up with --API. So for that, go into your automatic 1111 folder, look for the file webui-user.bat, right click on that, and either you have here an edit option, or you go down here to show more options and click on edit. And here in set command line args, you want to type --API, and then you want to save that file and restart automatic 1111. Now for the render settings here, this can choose for you automatically the model and also the sampler. So I would leave this as currently selected model, and for the sampler, I would suggest the sampler that you like most. Probably in most cases, this is gonna be Euler A. Next to that, you have the amount of images. Now here, I would suggest that you set this to 1 and try out the prompt that you have set up, so to see if you get any good results, and then afterwards you can push this up. Now here's another thing that is very important, the size to generate. If this is on all, it will create all kinds of ratio for your image. So if you know what you want to create, you can select from this list here, for example, for most portraits, for images of people, you want to have portrait mode, and for landscapes or sceneries you want to have wide mode in most cases. There's also an ultra wide mode here that you can use. So let's set this in this case for portrait. Below that you have the sampling steps and also the CFG scale. This is by standard set to 7, but you might want to push this up higher, for example to 7.5 or even 8. Below that we have the high-res fix that works exactly the same as an automatic 1111. And below that we have the quality gate. When you turn this on, you have some additional options. Now, most of the images you generate will not be over 7.2. So if you set this higher than that, you will get a lot of re-renders until the AI is satisfied with the image. And you can set here the amount of tries it should take until it finds a good quality image. Personally, I have to say, I didn't have the feeling that this is choosing the best quality image. So if it is rendering the images anyways to their completion, I would rather keep all of the images and choose myself afterwards, but you can certainly experiment with this option. And below that you have the upscale image to image settings. This again has exactly the same settings as you would find in automatic 1111. The interesting thing here is that you can choose a different model, sampler and upscaler for this upscaling method, and this can help you, for example, use a trick that I often use for model switching, which means that, for example, I first render an image with ref animated to get a more artistic and more expressive pose, and then afterwards I turn it into a realistic image by rendering it in image to image with realistic vision, or Reliberate, the model that I showed you yesterday. Check that out, it's a pretty amazing model. Below that you also have another very interesting option here, and that is use Ultimate SD upscale script instead. Now this again requires that you have the Ultimate SD upscale extension installed, which means you go back to the extensions tab, look for that extension and install that as I showed you before. But here you can have these additional settings. Now this is working with tiles and can give you a much bigger resolution with a lot more details, and at the same time it is easier for GPUs and works with older GPUs because it is rendering the images broken down in smaller tiles rather than a full image at the same time. After all of this is done, you can simply click here on the Start Generate an Upscaling button. And one more thing that is important to know here is you have to click on this folder button here. So this guides you to the folder where the images are actually stored, because the output is not in the normal output folder for automatic 1111. This has its own folder, but that also makes sense because with this you will certainly generate hundreds if not thousands of images because of the randomization and the automation of the process. Let me know what kind of cool tricks you found with this extension to get even better results. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and see you soon. Bye! Oh, you're still here. So this is the end screen. There's other stuff you can watch like this or that. It's really cool. And yeah, I hope I see you soon. Leave a like if you haven't yet. And well, yeah,